just like quit consuming the content on Instagram or LinkedIn that is giving you what someone else's results have been without actually being real examples of the hard work that goes in.
The Business Lab.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Business Lab podcast. Today we have another guest, none other than Nurul, the founder of the Codette project.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Right, this episode is sponsored by our sponsors, ID, Entity and Seyrul, and of course our media magicians, StudioFive Corp. Welcome to the podcast, Nurul.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you. I've always heard about you. I've seen you on the news, everywhere, but this is the first time we're having a conversation. So that's really exciting, right? So I'm very interested to ask a little bit more about the Codette project. Obviously, it is a non-profit. So what was your vision for the Codette project when you first started?
This is a great question because originally the idea for the Codette project was something that is quite different from what it is now. And we'd originally thought of creating long-term training programs for women to get into the tech industry. But what we realized was that there was actually a demand for support for women at every stage of their career because women know what they want to do in order to succeed. And women want to enter the tech industry in a lot of different points. So we looked at actually having a much more diversified model after the 1 year mark. We pivoted. So we pivoted into a much more modular system where we have a lot more in terms of what do we define as tech. So for us, it's everything from user experience, design, social media, to the more traditional coding, software engineering. And we're really built on 3 different pillars. So we're built on community building, skills development, and our most important and perhaps most unusual is reclaiming narratives of success, where we're looking at taking back the stories of success to include women who look like us and also diversifying the stories of success to include more diverse stories of what success should look like.
Oh, that's amazing. And I wanted to tell us, because you mentioned quite a few things. Let's zoom on the first one, which is the community itself. Why do you feel that there was a need for a community in the first place?
Why do I think that there's a need for a community in the first place? I think a community or a supportive ecosystem is really important in creating and amplifying success. And what we see is a lot of women still exist in areas or spaces where they might be the only person that is interested in tech, or they might be the only person that is interested in like exploring what else there is out there. Whether you are a mom that took a career break, or you're looking at upskilling yourself above the age of 40, or if you're looking at just as a hobbyist, or if you're in a career, you're looking at how do you get to the next level. There's a lot of people that want more people around them and like a safe and supportive space that's not competitive, but supportive in order to create the environment where people fundamentally believe in their success, and not just that, but in their choice of what success looks like for them. So we really center the fact that minority Muslim women deserve to choose for ourselves what success looks like for us. And whatever that looks like for you, that's something that we want to respect. And we want to provide you the support that your journey will have that support no matter what it is that you consider successful. So I think that's really, really key for us. And we've seen that as being a cornerstone of what we offer.
It's beautiful. And I guess it links back to the third point which you mentioned, which is owning back that narrative. It's not really about what other people say, but how do we define it? And we want to take the definition for ourselves, make it meaningful for us.
Yes, and I think it's a little bit more than that because it's actually not looking at someone else's viewpoint. It's like, I don't care what someone else is saying, someone else thinks. And to be honest, I don't really need to know. I think I need to know what it is that the women in my community believe is success for them. And then how do we amplify that? So the overall mission or the overall goal for Codette is long-term economic growth, because if you have economic freedom, you have freedom to choose. And I think that's very fundamental to a lot of what we do, because we do see women as having more choices and coming to us because we respect the choices that they make.
Okay, I'm very curious to know what made you want to pursue that aspect of values in the non-profit. Like why that? Why that particular cause? Why does that resonate so much with you?
Why which part?
Like, for example, you said you wanted to empower women, to choose their own meaning for what success is for them. Why is that something that resonates with you as a person?
I think that is something that to me is an obvious and has always been an obvious gap where you have a lot of like, so okay, maybe we'll take a step back. So I'm of the generation, and maybe we're of the same generation, where we were told that the next big thing would be biotech. Right? So like in JC, you have like maybe 2 classes that are doing tech or like coding, and then you have so many classes doing biomed or biotech, and like that was something that a lot of people went into and didn't necessarily like and didn't necessarily succeed in. And I think that to me illustrates one of the issues with a top-down model of definition of success. If we choose success for ourselves and then we look at enabling the people that have these decisions, have these priorities of success, I think we will be a much better community and we will be a much better ecosystem. So it's really about going back to respecting the individual and the individual's choices.
Respecting the individual and your choices. I think that's bringing autonomy back to the space.
Yes, correct.
It's amazing. And humanity back to the space.
Yes.
That's amazing. And, Codette is a non-profit.
Yes.
Right. So I'm very curious to know, like, how do you what were your initial steps when you started the non-profit to just kick it off? And do you have any plans on sustaining it? And what were those plans to sustain it?
So we've been around for almost 10 years. So we'll be 10 years. We started in December 2015.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So next year will be our 10th anniversary. And what really what happened was that we had the opportunity with Mendaki. So I had the opportunity to pitch for a social media impact idea as part of the Rizwan Zafir Community Awards. But by that time, my MBA had already been paid for. So I was like, actually, I don't need a scholarship. But if you like my social impact idea, then you can give me funding. And that was the initial start of the Codette project. They gave us, I think, $7,500, and that lasted us 18 months. So that's a really low burn rate. And the reason for that is that I've always had a full-time job. My team has always had a full-time job. We all have full-time jobs, and all of us that work for Codette, we're either volunteers or interns. So at the moment, I've got 2 interns. Everyone else is a volunteer. Everyone else has a full-time job. And that allows us to have a much longer runway and much lower burn rate. We don't have an office. We don't have overheads like, rental, pay, things like that. And that's how we've been able to do this work for the community for 10 years.
Yeah, you read my mind. That's exactly what I'm going to ask, because a lot of people, once they have the money, they can't really sustain it, or their costs are really astronomical. So what are some of the tips, or what are some of the things that you advise those out there who already have this cash pool of funding such that they can use that money and maximize for the company?
Look, I think a lot of companies that I see are really interested in growth rather than sustainability. And these are 2 very different things. So growth is not profit, right? So growth doesn't not necessarily lead to sustainability. And a lot of people are also very interested in paying for their imaginary lifestyles.
Okay.
And I think these
imaginary lifestyles, interesting word choice there.
So imagine the lifestyles, I guess, is the important word. So I think if you're doing something within the social impact space, you need to be very clear that it's really difficult to have a lot of long-term funding, and you cannot pay the people that work for you the amount that they deserve. I think that's very clear. If I were to pay one person on my team the amount that they deserve or that they get from their day job, I would have like maximum 3 to 6 months runway. That's it. But it's really impossible for me to do that at the moment. It's not financially sustainable. And I am very clear about that. And we've always not been financially sustainable because I knew that that was always going to be an issue. So our funding runway has always been hit or miss. In COVID, we were really almost out of money. So there was a point in COVID where we had our last $10,000, and that $10,000 was a donation from the estate of the late mom of one of our Codettes.
MashaAllah. Wow.
So everybody please make dua for... Wait, actually, I'm going to check her name so you can all say dua for her. Hold on. So wait, let me just check her name. So then you can all say dua for her because like literally she helped us so much, mashallah. So I'm going to start this again.
Okay.
So in COVID, we were really almost literally out of money. We were at our last $10,000, and that $10,000 was from the estate of the late Zubaida binti Muhammad, and please make dua for her. So she's the mom of one of our Codettes, and we had gotten this amount from her estate after she passed away, and it was intended to be a scholarship. And we're like, honestly, we don't have any money left. Like, what should we do? And then we're like, inshallah, we'll just launch a scholarship. Like, if we have to close, we'll close. It's fine. So we launched the scholarship and we're ready to do that. And then, alhamdulillah, like, we had an offer from a large tech company who had gotten in touch with us just through research. We'd never worked with them before. The first time they got in touch with us, we thought it was a scam. And this is Zendesk. And they got in touch and they gave us a large amount of funding. And we're like, alhamdulillah, like, we didn't expect this. We really thought we might have to close. And when we got the confirmation that actually we got the funding, we had more runway, it gave us so much hope. But that was also something that we couldn't imagine and we couldn't really plan for.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, we need to understand how the interior design industry works here in Singapore. So majority of the IDs or the people who work within the interior design companies, most of them are actually freelancers. They are not employed based on a full-time basis. So they work on a commission basis. So, and some business models or some ID companies want to have a lot of ID so that they can close a lot of projects on. My personal tip here is start with visiting the IDs that you have shortlisted or you're interested in. Look at their place of work, look at how they work, look at their office. Once you have done that, I think what you should also do here is to ensure that these IDs that you potentially want to engage are HDB licensed. Last but definitely not least, and to me the most important, because I think nobody do this. Okay. Once you have confirmed, or let's say for example, you really want to sign with this ID company, right? Go to Accra website and pull out the company's profile. Firstly, you know who are the directors, you know where is their office, you know when they were incorporated. Most importantly, you know how much they actually put in as the initial investment or the capital. So in the context of my industry, right, the ID industry, right, I always advise my clients, don't look for cheap, look for value. Okay? Because cheap don't guarantee you that you're going to get what you want. Okay? Because in order to be cheap, there are corners that I need to cut. But instead look for value. And when I talk about value here, it's not just what I use to build your home, how I communicate with you, how prompt am I, how am I, how I can advise you. These are all the value I add. So like for us, because I maintain a very small team, right? So we only manage between 2 or 3 projects a month. We don't do a lot of projects. So this way, my people are better at managing that project. We are at site more frequent. We are constantly there to check if there are mistakes being made. And our communication with the owners are more frequent, more kira macam more in depth. We are able to, yeah, correct.
Was there like a strategy going about it? Like, how do you plan to approach a certain partner or
Well, so
sponsor?
now we've got more of like a plan. So I've just onboarded a couple of team members which are much better at planning, much better at fundraising. And we're looking at, yes, approaching more people, applying for grants, things like that. But I'll be very honest with you, a lot of the grants that we have gotten have kind of been random. Like it's someone that maybe saw a Channel News Asia documentary
Yes.
in the lift in their hotel when they came to Singapore, or they did a search on like women in tech organizations in Asia, and then it comes up. So it's really been random, and also things that we really never thought we would get. Like alhamdulillah, I was part of a Facebook program. That program doesn't exist anymore, so it really only ran for 1 year. But I applied, and 2 people from Singapore got it, and we were part of 115 people globally that got to go to the US, got funding from Facebook.
mashallah.
And it's like, alhamdulillah, if we hadn't applied, and I applied literally last minute, like an hour before closing, and I just did the video interview like with my phone in my room, but they believed not just in me, but in our community, in the Malay Muslim community, the minority Muslim community, and in minority Muslim women, and the fact that we deserve equal access in tech. And to me, that's been powerful, because sometimes the narrative is that we doubt the success of minority Muslim women. We don't take it as assumed. But if we believe, as we should believe, that all communities are equal in terms of intelligence and in terms of capability, then we know that the gap is only access and opportunity, and that's what we need to fill.
Equality of opportunity.
Equality of not just equality, but equity. Equity of opportunity and access.
Okay. But I suppose this is a very important conversation and to keep on repeating, because I guess the voice is not as loud as it should be.
Yes.
Do you think what do you think the climate is like right now in the tech space when it comes to how do you view minority Muslim women from your experience? How's the climate now?
Well, I think it's definitely improved. So the narrative around women in tech in general has developed. So there's definitely a more of an acceptance. But one thing that we do a little bit differently is that we're not an activist organization. We're not an advocate organization. What we do is that we start from the point of view now that we will only work with organizations and people that fundamentally believe that minority and Muslim women are equal. And if we have organizations or people who want to partner with us that can't come from that same understanding, then there's no reason why we need to convince them, because that's not that's not, I can use as much data as I want, but if you don't think I'm equal, that's a moral gap. That's not a factual gap. And I'm not here to fix your moral values. That's like your problem. Go to therapy. That's not my issue. Yeah. So we used to try and convince people, but it was exhausting. So we don't do it anymore.
Oh, okay. That's beautiful. I think it's very insightful. Circling back to the point of funding.
Yes.
Right? I think for some of the people out there that are watching, perhaps they want to get funding. What are some of the common mistakes that you think people make whenever they're trying to get funding from partners or sponsors?
Yeah, so I will say this. I think a lot of people look at social impact, look at, running their own business, look at startups as being kind of like glamorous. You have time, you're your own boss, all this is honestly nonsense. Like, I don't know where this narrative comes from. You will do much better work if you stay off Instagram. Like, just like quit Instagram. This is my business advice to people. Like, just like quit consuming the content on Instagram or LinkedIn that is giving you what someone else's results have been without actually being real examples of the hard work that goes in. So don't get distracted by that, firstly.
Right.
No one's going to follow this advice. Everyone's still going to have Instagram. So the other part is that you have to be very, very clear on what your needs are first. So if you as the founder or the startup founder, whatever founder, if you yourself don't have your own budget, your lifestyle budget, how much do you need per month to live in the way that you want to live, you're never going to be able to catch up to the kind of funding that you want to get. You'll always be like, I need more funding, I need more funding, I need more funding. And your burn rate is always going to go up and up and up because you don't even know for yourself how much is it that you need.
Okay.
And at the beginning especially, I think a lot of the costs go to the founders. Founders should pay themselves first, but you shouldn't be paying yourself an insane amount of money because the burn rate is you, right? Look at your programs, look at what is high impact, focus on high impact, and focus on giving real value to the people within your community. I think for the Codette project, one of the things that we've been able to do with this perspective is look at things in the long run. We've been able to trial things. So at the beginning, we trialed a lot of different short form workshops. In COVID, we did a lot of videos. We've been able to trial these things because none of these things have huge costs. I think this is true for almost any business. There is a way to trial. There is a way to slowly stage your growth and your process so that you are sustainable. If you are looking at funding, you must be very clear about what that funding is going to be used for. And I would honestly say, I think most founders should keep their day job.
What makes you say that?
Because the failure rate for most businesses in Singapore, for example, F&B failure rate is like 99% at the first year. I think for startup founders, it's probably similar. It's at least in the 90th percentile. If you look at that, do you want to take that risk? Should you take that risk? And why would you want to take that risk? Be very clear that in order to have the kind of economic sustainability and the financial security that you want,
Yes.
it might make sense for you to actually try and take a longer term perspective and have a longer runway. And that might be just keep your day job.
It sounds like it's closely linked to the whole consumption on social media, whereby you're comparing your life to others. This whole imposter syndrome. There's also like FOMO, like fear of missing out. Other people are doing this. I sense that there's a kind of a link there between the content they're consuming and this expectation that, the entrepreneurship life is high and mighty, is all a bed of roses.
I think it's also sometimes exhaustion. So I don't want to deny the fact that a lot of day jobs are really exhausting and people are looking at entrepreneurship as being an alternative that is easier. But the reality of it is that really it's not. And I think for a lot of women as well, like if you are a woman and you are a caretaker and you're in full-time work, you're like, actually, you already have 3 jobs, right? So like, if you can get rid of one of those jobs or by choosing an option which allows you more independence on your time, why wouldn't you want to choose that? Especially if you see a lot of people doing that and that seems helpful for them. And I do think that that is a good option for people who are able to do it.
Yes.
But you have to be very clear that the risk of failure is super high and not enough people talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons over time? I think that needs to be talked about. And I don't blame people for wanting a softer way out. We do live in stressful economic times. People are under a lot of economic pressure. That's real. And I think it's absolutely normal and natural to be like, I would like an easier way out.
Everybody does, yeah?
Yes, it's totally normal.
And I'm sensing a lot of the career coach of your aspect coming out, your personality. Could you tell a little bit more, like what are some of the common, perhaps, concerns of, it doesn't have to be Muslim women, but the people that you coach, what are the concerns when it comes to building their careers in that space then?
Yeah, so I think, interestingly enough, a big concern recently, like over the last 6 months, it's not just about building career, but it's also like, I really want to quit my job, which I think is super fair. But one thing that a lot of people should realize is the traditional advice has been have 6 months of savings and then quit.
Yep.
But the market, especially in tech is hiring. Tech is still a good market, but the market is softer. So for any industry, really, I think what you're looking at is that if you're looking to jump, you should look at 12 to 18 months. So what I always say is that you should be applying to new jobs regularly. Get your increase there, like get your pay increase, get like your network, do all these things. Like, don't necessarily jump every 12 to 18 months, but look every 12 to 18 months. Have 12 to 18 months of saving just in case you need it. Like, I'm a very low risk person because, I have a kid, I have a family. I think a lot of women are really in situations which are super, super stressful and they just want a way out. And I think that's very valid.
Yeah. Very beautiful advice there. I wanted to kind of transition into this topic of partnerships.
Yes.
Right, and building partnerships. Obviously, you mentioned how you grew from strength to strength. You said you just onboarded someone. What's your take on building partnerships so that the Codette project can grow? Like, how do you know that a partner is the right partner for you guys? You did mention a little bit.
Yeah, so I did talk a little bit on the fact that the partner really has to see the value in minority Muslim women and be able to take us as we are. So that's one. I think the other part is that we really look at partners where we want to have long-term partnerships. So I think that's there has to be alignment in that. I'm not great at being systematic about this. This is why I need people on the team to like really help me, because I'm very, very good at dropping the ball. I'm great at dropping the ball. I'm great at not replying emails. I'm terrible at replying on time. So for me, that's a problem. And I think, founders need to be honest, like what their weaknesses are. My weakness is being organized. But I have a great team. I have a team of 10. And my talent is that I have had the great blessing of finding people that are so much better than me at everything. Like, my talent is finding them. Like, honestly, alhamdulillah. Like, that's my talent. So, but they're much better than me, like all these things, including partnerships. I didn't have like a proper pitch deck. And someone who came on board this year was like, you really don't have a pitch deck? I was like, no, sorry. That is also consistency. It is reaching out to people, being out there, updating people on like, what is Codette doing? We've got an annual report that we do once every 1 to 2 years. So it's just making sure you're just, I guess, really clear on tracking what it is that you're doing over the years. You're able to present it to people and you are able to build up that over time. Like, I can't underline enough the fact that we've been around 10 years. We've been doing this work for 10 years. Like, we didn't start up 1 to 2 years ago. I don't think people should expect the kind of, even, like likes on Instagram that we get until you've been around for a while. We have done the work for 10 years.
What a big phrase in coaching, to do the work.
Yes.
And I think you alluded a little bit to that, like looking at perhaps some profiles that on LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever, that you felt that, that's a kind of a projection, but it's about doing the work. Like, why is that so important? You feel, why is this something that you felt you wanted to raise up?
What I see in a lot of social impact projects, a lot of social impact ideas, is a lot of social impact ideas are done from a third party perspective. There are people that are not involved necessarily in the problem.
Okay.
And their teams may not necessarily have people who are involved in the problems, but they're like, I have this idea for this community, for this thing, and I'm going to try and run it. And I think that for me, my question for these organizations is actually, if you do not embed the understanding of this environment or this ecosystem, this community within your team, are you actually going to be able to solve that?
Oh.
I think that in order to treat people or like to build something that makes things more equitable, you need to start with the founding team. And a lot of people who want to be founders don't necessarily think about that. Yeah.
Wow, to embed the problems, the values, the whole...
Like, hire people who have those problems. Like, those people should be in your team. Like, my team is 80% minority Muslim women.
It's really walking the talk.
Yes, you should. I mean...
Fundamental, right?
Fundamentally, yes.
Fundamentally, yeah. That's amazing. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I think we've gotten a lot of golden nuggets from Nurul's episode. If you like this episode, please share the episode on wherever you get your podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. There is a survey that you'll see in the description box. Please fill up and give us some of your feedback so that we can improve the episodes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Identity, Crowd by 3, and our media magicians, StudioFive Corp. With that, thank you so much, Nurul, for being on the episode.
You're very welcome. Please like us on Instagram and LinkedIn and other social media, the Codette Project. Thank you.
Shout out to Codette Project. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.